mercy, what a stop!
My goodness, what a save!
What a save! What a glove save there, but what a stop! Looked like a sure goal. You talk about an A+ save and maybe the save of the night.
Welcome to the Goalie Science Podcast, where we break down the science of goaltending, coaching, and everything in between. I'm Dr. Jamie Phillips, former professional goalie, board-certified physical therapist, and goalie performance specialist, alongside my co-host, Derek Boujan, owner of Boujan Goaltending and On Ice Hockey Performance Center. Whether you're on your way to a game, gearing up for practice, or just tuning in, grab your favorite drink and let's drop the puck on this week's episode. Welcome to another episode of the Jordan Binnington podcast. I am your host, Dr. Jamie Phillips. I am joined as always by not Dr. Derek Boujan, but basically a goalie doctor in terms of how he's able to fix everyone. However, Bouge, we're going to get right into it, putting you in the hot seat. Are we the worst ever goalie evaluators of all time, since we use stats and tangible evidence to say that Jordan Binnington should not have been the guy, but he wins? So what now, as we look like idiots?
Well, do we look like idiots? Or, I mean, are we supposed to eat crow and be like, Jordan Binnington is the best Canadian goalie of all time? Because, you know what, embarrassingly enough, like the kind of dialogue that I've heard since the Four Nations win has all been how amazing of a goalie Jordan Binnington is and how much of a money goalie Jordan Binnington is. And yeah, the guy had a good night. Like, in the comments, I'm probably going to get roasted by whoever the guy was roasting us last week. But Jordan Binnington had a good night. He did. But at the end of the day, Jordan Binnington is a below average NHL goalie over the course of 82-game season. And he will continue to be that until he's our number one goalie in the Olympics next year. And we'll have this conversation all over again.
Oh, he's 100%. He has to be the number one goalie in the Olympics. But Jordan Binnington, today's episode is sponsored by Milton Vision Sports Vision and Training Center. Sports Vision Training is a unique opportunity for each goalie to train their vision and processing speed. At Milton Vision, they are fully equipped to train hand-eye coordination, reaction time, peripheral awareness, single and multiple object tracking, motor planning, decision-making, and processing speed. Goalies' eyes take in information from all angles, especially when playing at high speeds. Their personalized approach will help you execute your movements more accurately and optimize your skills. For 20% off your initial evaluation and 15% off your first block of training, mention the code GOALIESCIENCE when you call to book to receive this discount. Once again, that's Goalie Science when you call to book to receive that discount. Now back to the episode. Wins championships, in 2009, and then 6 years later wins championships. So what happens between in those 6 years doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. It's all what happens. It's just what happens. What did you do for me lately?
Hey, and I went on the rant and I was against him. And I mean, he was proving me right for the majority of the tournament until the finals. But give the guy his due, give the guy his credit. He was. But let's calm down and pump the brakes on trying to compare Jordan Binnington to Carey Price. If I have to hear that from Nick Kypreos, and
I don't get Toronto sports talk, but that was the talking point.
Well, Nick Kypreos is the worst of all time. Like, he really is. And anybody who listens to the Fan 590, we're getting canceled now. That's fine. But Nick Kypreos is unlistenable. And everybody who's now jumping on the bandwagon is a hypocrite because they're all against him. And I'm not going to be a hypocrite. I don't think he should have been there. He had a good night. I will give the kid his due. He had a good night.
And yeah, you know what? We both have egg on our face. Me, I just try to toe the line so I could come out as a winner no matter what happened. But like I talked about last week in evaluations in USA Hockey, we are looking for goalies that show up in short tournaments and can win games. However, we can't, as general goalie people, you have to look for who is currently the best goalie, who is the best goalie over the course of a season, all these different things. But, Jordan Binnington tends to show up at big games.
And can I ask you a question with like that ideology? And like, a serious question, I'm actually curious. If that is how they identify the goalies, would they take Connor Hellebuck?
That's a good question. Actually, I might throw that in our next goalie coordinator and development chat That's a good point. And
But let's not kid ourselves. We're not blaming Connor Howell for the loss. He didn't have a good playoff run last year.
no,
He didn't. He got outplayed by Jordan Winnington in the finals.
Mhm.
Straight up got outplayed. Would he be the guy that they took? Because I mean, with this, they went off the body of work, right? Which is a kind of against what USA Hockey does. But ask that question. Like, I'd be honestly curious. Like, what direction would they have gone?
that's who would the alternative be though, right? America hasn't won in like excluding World Juniors and men's national play, and
We're talking about senior team.
yeah, the seniors, yeah, they haven't won in
1997.
many years. Did they win 97?
They won the World Cup.
Can they bring back? So Mike Richter is the next goalie for the Olympics. Mike Richter is the only possible goalie.
No, like, we didn't know we were going to talk about this, so I didn't go back and look internationally, but I don't think they've won a senior title since 1997 World Cup.
The World Cup of hockey, that back in 97. Have the Knights ever won the Olympics?
They didn't win the Olympics.
Well, yeah, I'll bring that up because that's a good point. I know how we set it up is we were looking for whoever performs the best on that weekend, but we also have some ways to figure out. We have basically like last chance qualifiers and kind of things like that to find people that may slip through the crack or really good goalies that just had a bad weekend. So we do that. However, you are wrong. You are wrong. The internet here is telling me that the recent medal, the World Championships, would have been bronze in 2021, and they won the World Championship in 93 and 1960. There's no way it's got to be sometime in there.
No, they won a World Cup or something. And also, World Championship isn't best on best. Like, I don't think that counts.
No. Yeah, the United States only, according to the USA Hockey website, the United States only has one gold medal at the men's World Championship, which they don't bring their best though, and that's probably going to change. I think who was it? Was Eichel or Larkin? I think it was Larkin had a really, really good quote talking about how it's time for their best players to stop. He even said stop faking injuries and start playing at these things. But I also don't hate how the USA Hockey will bring in some of the younger stars to play in that tournament. I think it's a really good experience and opens the door. But if the goal is to win, which it seems like now after this Four Nations, which has been pretty awesome, all things considered, like if that's the goal, then they're probably going to have to start bringing in some people. And also this year, like I'm assuming they're going to make it a prerequisite. You have to play. If your team is eliminated from playoffs, you have to play if you want to be considered to the Olympics. I'm assuming it's what they're going to say.
Probably, but that's still, the World Championship is still not best on best, right? Because you still have some of the best players playing in the playoffs. So to me, that tournament is never going to mean anything other than like, it's like to me, World Championship and Spengler Cup are pretty much the same level. I mean, the Spengler Cup is different. It's kind of like the Spengler Cup is cool, but to me, it's like the same level. Like World Championship isn't something that I would ever put stock into being an identifier of how good your program is, because it's not best on best. You got the best players still playing in the NHL. So you can't say it's just, whatever guys don't make the playoffs and they get eliminated in the first round.
No, 100% agree. It's like so America's won 2 gold medals in 1960 and 1980 in the Olympics, World Championships. Yep. 1933, 1960 Canada Cup winner in 96 World Cup. Yep, 96, you're right. So, well, it's interesting. That's I like that. That's a good talking point. I'll bring that up in the next call. It's interesting.
I also think they're coming, right? Like if you look at the juniors, if the World Juniors is any indicator of what's coming in the next, say, 5 years, then I mean they're coming. Like the USA is coming for sure.
And the United States were one shot away from winning.
Yeah. I mean, everything we're about to talk about for the next 2-3 weeks is dependent on one shot.
Yes. Or Matthews not losing McDavid in the slot.
Hey, Mitchie Marner, baby.
Hey.
Goalies go.
Goalies go. Hey, you're always coming with either Mitch Marner makes play or
Hey, I always find ways to have leap
You
top.
all guess. You never, yeah. Like I don't.
See, but we got the Wendell Clark, Doug Gilmore picture in the background here. I'm trying to get them in because those are my boys growing up.
Yeah, we'll have to do a little bit of diving deep into the playoff talk as we get closer, because I'm really curious to know is actually what right now, who are you going with? Are you going with Wall or Stollers to start first game?
Oh man, I am a Joe Wolf fan. Like I really am. And I mean, he proved that he could do it over the course of what 25 games when Stollers was out. I mean, first game back, they played Stollers and he played well. I think Berube's like got, I'd say he'd give him the edge right now to Stollers. But I mean, we're still 30 games away, so a lot can happen and a lot can change. But I'm a Joe Wolf fan. And to me, if it's a coin flip, and this is me thinking long term. If it's a coin flip, you have a guy who's 26 years old who you have under contract for 2 more years, who's going to be a restricted free agent, I think, when this one's done because of his time under contract. Like, is he not the guy that you kind of give the ball to? Like, if it's that close, like it's as close as it is, right? I'm not talking about like a 1 and a 2, but the 2 is the young guy. Like, I'm not saying that. I'm like, these two are so close in every metric that if it's that close, do you not go with the guy who you may have under control for the next 10 years as opposed to the guy who could walk after next year? But I mean, that's not a hockey decision. That's a business decision. So I don't know. But I think Berube right now, if he had a gun to his head, would probably start Anthony Stollers in game 1.
I'd say he's probably going to start Stollers unless everything goes poorly, just because he has a Stanley Cup. And you know that the argument's going to be, well, you have a current Stanley Cup champion. Why would you not play him?
Who didn't play? Like I see that.
I know that, but you know how
You brought it up. Like you.
Yeah, but I'm playing
with your
the devil's.
all you want.
I'm playing devil's advocate because that that's probably going to be a large factor into it, right?
Would you start Matt Murray?
No, we talked.
He has 2 Stanley Cups, Jamie.
Yes, but he's currently not in the NHL, Derek.
But if we're going off, well, he's got a Stanley Cup. Matt Murray has 2 of them, and he can't hear what we're saying because they're plugging his ears. But yeah, we're going to start Matt Murray in the Calder Cup finals.
Well, you know what's going to happen is this is going to come around, and then I'm going to find a clip that's going to say, well, Anthony Stollers has a Stanley Cup winner, and it's going to be the same thing. And I cut it in here, and then we're going to look like idiots again.
If Nick Kyprios is saying start Stollers, then you don't start Stollers because anything he says is wrong. But good transition. We playoffs.
He cuts in plays, but before we do that, I played a hockey game today.
Come on.
Yeah, so Fox Morris does a charity hockey game, coaches versus the U16 team. I played in it. This is the first time I've had to stop a puck that wasn't me recording things for the EGM Labs app. Huge plug for that. But boy, did they, well, it wasn't bad. It's just like bits and pieces were there, but the sum of all the parts was not there. Like my brain was sending signals to my body, and I felt like that old clunky man. It got better. Actually, my tracking was surprisingly dialed. Movements and play reading, not so much, because I gave up 3 goals. One was a fan, a 5-hole, tough look. One of them, I know, a guy alone in the slot. His stick was going high glove. He just fanned out him on 5-hole. Way too aggressive too. I was all over the place. The first goal I gave up, it was like a broken 2-on-1, 3-on-2, and the player shot it, went off, fake shot, and then walked towards the middle, and I dropped. That was the first time I'd taken a rush in 5 years. I forgot how to move laterally. Give me some stationary shots, please. But it was, my hips really hurt, and it was for charity, and Fox has raised, I think, pretty close to $80,000 for Hockey Fights Cancer. So it's for a good event. Next year, I will skate at least once before the game and not go to Florida and spend a week in the sun drinking. But it was for a good cause, and yeah, I always say, I'll play for 3 things. I'll play for charity, the Michigan Tech alumni game, or if I win the lotto, I'm just going to sign in the 3rd league in the south of France and just live the dream.
But it's cool.
And I will never put on goalie equipment ever again. Because if I do, I will never get off the ice because I'll go down once and I'll be stuck. So that ship has sailed. It will never.
Everyone is always like, you know, like my wife and my dad. My dad was here. It was cool that worked out with my dad being here, but they're just like, oh, I hope you had fun. Like, it's just for fun. But like, you understand, like I did this one thing to be so, all I know is doing this to be good. And now I'm not good at it. And that hurt. That's hard. That's really, really hard.
You can't
So hard. No, you can't. And like and people like put your ego behind you. Like it's for charity. Like I'm okay embarrassing myself for charity. But like it's hard because I know like I used to be pretty good and now I am not very good. And so it's just like that's one makes me sad, but two, it's like either I go back all in and I try to go pro at some low level or I just don't do it all because that's the way I'm wired. It's either all or nothing. So, I mean, I could play men's league as a player, like way more fun. But yeah, like when people are just like, oh, why don't you play? And like, don't you miss it? No.
We're on the ice more now than
wait.
I mean, yeah, that's our NHL now. Is like that's where the competitive stuff comes is teaching guys to actually have to go out and play, but we still have that competitiveness because like we're in the trenches with them. Yeah, but I don't have to do a butterfly or an RVH and get up and take a slash shot in the neck in practice and do drills where we're getting 3 shots at the same time. And I have no interest in playing men's league where you get no defense. And if I give up 3 goals in a men's league C division, I'm ready to drive off the escarpment because I hold myself to a standard that is unattainable for somebody who doesn't play.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Like my movements, the first half of the game was really rusty, obviously, and then the second half was a little bit better, but like just my movements, wearing goalie skates was probably the biggest problem. I should have just wore player skates. It would have been way smarter. Actually, shout out Bauer, sent me a brand new pair of Connects, so I do have to go give those a shot. I'm very curious to see how they're going to go. But yeah, it's just that the mental part of it just doesn't click. And I just wanted to be good, and I was just okay. But I think I was just like, that's kind of a bummer for me. But it was fun. And a lot of my goalies were there too. So I got a lot of pictures with my goalies and I got to play against my goalies too. And so there was like that fun stuff. And the coaches won. So it was a good time. But yeah, it was there. Hopefully I can get some good footage and stuff. But I don't want to hear if anyone says hitting my toe lock is too hard. I haven't had to try to hit a toe lock in 5 years. Do you think I missed one in 30 minutes of hockey? No, not one. Boom. Perfect every time. So I don't want to hear it. If I still have that muscle memory, you can build that muscle memory. Like once you get it, you practice it, you're going to get it. But
I have a very important question.
Yeah.
This is the first time that your wife has ever watched you play hockey.
Yes.
Does she think you're full of crap now after watching you play and realizing that you're just not that good?
No, I think she's just not a hockey girl. So like, she doesn't know what good is. She was just really excited to see it. Cause I think like, hockey is obviously my life. It's what I do. And I used to be good at it. For her, like she'd be like the kind of girl like you see on TikTok that's like so happy that her man is playing men's league, has no idea. So like I am supportive of that. If my wife knew anything about hockey, she probably would have walked out. She would have like, this guy can't find his edges. So it was, but I think she really liked it, and we got the pictures and stuff, and it's more for her and for the charity and things. But like next year, I'm gonna practice a couple times beforehand. I was invited to play in like a men's league tournament in May. I don't know if I'm going to. I gotta tell them like, look, if you're trying to win, you don't want me. If you just want to play and have fun and we're gonna work hard and try to win, but like we're gonna be playing cornhole and crushing beers between games, then I'll be like, yeah, okay, I'll play, because that's the kind of mentality that I have to go in with. That mentality. If I go into it being like, as we're gonna talk about, putting the playoff pressure on, I gotta start a Rocky montage and get back after it, because I can't. Like, I can. I thought about it, and I think that if I put in a couple months of hard, legit training like I used to, it'd probably be okay. But I just don't have the time or energy or desire to do that. But it was cool to put the gear on, and yeah, just like I forgot about a lot of things. I tried to think about like what was my warm up. I was like, I don't even remember what my warm up was.
Listen, I love you. You're one of my favorite people in this entire world. Nobody who's listening to this cares about you and your men's league journey. They're here to talk about playoffs. Stop talking about yourself. Let's move on to something important.
Okay,
Let's talk about me.
Let's circle back to Jordan Binnington. Probably gonna throw in an ad read or something here. We will have Dr. Ackerman back on. I know he, as you listen to, loves to talk. Very, very smart guy. Didn't even scratch the surface on a lot of things, and we had a ton of follow-up questions. So we will get him back on for another podcast. Because he also is the presenting sponsor of this week's episode as well. But talking about Jordan Binnington, talking about Connor Hellebuyck, the pressures, the difference in pressures between the regular season and the playoffs. And I know we always like to talk about, hey, like we treat it the same. It's just another game. And yes, that is true, but there is a heightened sense of urgency in playoffs. And so that's what we wanted to talk about. Derek, this is something you brought up. So when you're working with your goalies, playoffs are coming up, either you're in them right now or they're coming up in the next week or two. What's kind of your approach with things when it comes to dealing with the playoff mindset and adjustments?
Okay, so should we start with like minor hockey playoffs or like junior playoffs? I don't know what our majority of our listeners are.
I'm assuming majority is minor hockey.
Okay, so let's talk minor hockey. Okay. So the one thing about minor hockey is, and I actually, you know what, I just did a virtual meeting with like a bunch of my goalies on this, is sometimes the mindset of the coaching staff changes. If the mindset of the coaching staff changes, where what I'm talking about is like maybe for the entire year you flip-flopped and you just rotated. And sorry, I had to cough. And now your coach's mindset changes where now you might play 2 or 3 in a row, or maybe you're going to sit 2 or 3 in a row. So hopefully your coach has had that communication with you, number one. So let's say you're a guy who now is going to play a couple games in a row. What do you need to do differently? So I'll pass this one to you. But in terms of like, if you're going every day, you're rotating all year. And now it's like, hey, we're going to play a game on Friday, or I'm going to play another game on Sunday. And like, how does that now change your mindset? Because I know what I said to my goalies earlier, but I'm curious to see what you think.
Are you talking about the mindset as what I would say to a goalie, or mindset as a goalie?
Whatever one you prefer. You're not a goalie, so let's just talk about what you would say to your goals.
Well, this is something that hopefully would have been established early on in the season, like the playoff. We talked about 50-50 and 60-40.
Yeah, a lot of times it's not, right? Like a lot of coaches will flip-flop all year with no expectations of running a guy. Then they lose the first game and they lose their minds. And all of a sudden it's like, I have to run this goalie for the rest of the year because we need to win every single game. And that's out of the control of the athlete.
Yes. Yeah, that is true. When talking to my goalie, I would just say, look, this is what we as the coaching staff have decided. You know, Tommy, you've been playing well, and we want you to keep playing well. Jimmy, there's a possibility that Tommy doesn't play well. You need to be ready to go if that's the case. But Tommy, this is your show, and I just try to keep it simple. It's lame. It's not. Is it the right way? I don't know, but that's probably what I would do, is keep it straight to the point. Just say, like, I usually just would explain it as, you've been playing very well right now, and we want to keep you playing well as long as possible.
No terrible answer.
Yeah.
Not anything I was looking for. What do you tell the goalie? Like, how do you change your mindset as the goalie now that you're playing more games?
What to tell the goalie is how he's playing more games? Explain. I'm confused.
Everybody who's listening understands exactly what I'm asking you.
Yeah, but that's okay, because you asked.
If you're the goalie, that is now all year you guys flip-flopped.
Yeah.
Now you're going to playoffs and you're going to get the bulk of the work. As the goalie who's now has to change the way his mindset is of, I'm going to flip-flop to now I'm the guy. How does that goalie's mindset, should it change or should it stay the same? Like, what?
No, I see. It shouldn't change. It should just it hopefully throughout the season, as we as goalie coaches should have established a quote unquote playoff mentality for every game, where they are taking every game as seriously as possible, especially if they're rotating, because there shouldn't be any surprises. You know when you're starting, and you know, like, hey, this is it. So there shouldn't be any change. And I think that that's something I'd establish with the goalie early on is this is another game. Just treat it the exact same way. I do not want you to change your routine. I don't want you to change anything. I want you to focus on one shot at a time every single time. Play your game and go on from there. Usually what you see is when playoffs come around, there is increased pressure. You know, there's that win. Sometimes there's a win or go home, or the goalies are thinking like, if I don't play well immediately, if I don't play well, I'm not going to play the next game, and all these things go through their heads. So just try to keep it, you know, keep everything as structured and the same as possible, because if you're the goalie that gets the nod, there's a reason for it. And I would tell them that. And I say, look, you're getting the nod for the reason. I want you to play your game.
Now, like the biggest thing a lot of kids say is like when playoffs happen, it changes. They think they need to prepare more or prepare harder because the game is more important. That is literally the worst thing you can do. Like if you are the goalie that is getting the nod to play a playoff game, that should tell you right away that number one, your teammates have confidence in you, your coaches have confidence in you, and you should have confidence in your preparation. Like do the things that got you there. Like I have that all the times. Like, wow, it's playoffs. I got to do more. No, absolutely not. Don't change what's working. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The other thing, I had a good point, but I lost it because I'm getting old and I think I'm getting dementia. But pressure, like you talk about pressure to win. Pressure to win is a privilege, right? And I said this earlier: is if you're playing U13 AAA and you're playing a win, like a win and in, losing out game in like a quarterfinal game, that game means more to the people involved than playing a Saturday night house league game at U15, right? So you have done the work to have the privilege to have that pressure. And it's something you should enjoy. And almost like we've heard this before, is like goalies before big games or playoff games, they get nervous, right? I know you guys have talked about this before I became part of this podcast, is your brain can't decipher the difference between anxiety and excitement. It's the same emotion. And I say to guys, like, if you're excited, that's great. I'm sorry, I didn't mean excited. If you're nervous, that's great. That's a great sign. Because if you're nervous, you're invested. You want to be there. You want to play well. You want to have success. If you're going into a game and there is no nerves, like that to me is a red flag. And there's lots of people who are like, oh yeah, I don't get nervous. I call BS on that for sure. Goals in the NHL, get nervous, right? Because it's the same as being excited. So you guys should harness that excitement. And if we want to kind of go back to Jordan Binnington, the one thing that Jordan Binnington does really well, and it was pretty evident for me watching, is like if anybody who's listening to this pulls up a Jordan Binnington highlight reel, you're going to see a couple things. You're going to see a bunch of desperation saves, and you're going to see him skating in the corner and fighting guys. You're going to see him blockering guys in the head. You're going to see him yelling at the other goalie. You're going to see him engaged in all of that extra nonsense. When he played the Team USA finals, what did we see?
Same thing.
No, we saw none of that. Right? We saw him dial everything down. He took his emotions from up here, and I have my hand high, and he was able to bring his emotions down here. And that's one thing he's really good at, is he's able to bring his emotions down when he needs to have those games. Now, if he could do that all the time, maybe he wouldn't be able to have success all the time in the NHL like that. Maybe he needs to play with that intensity. But he was a different looking goalie emotionally in that final game. And that is one thing, like as goalies, if we're going to playoffs, is that's what we want to learn to do. Is we want to learn to take that nervous energy or that anxiety and just remember, like, pressure is a privilege. We're playing a game with pressure because we've put ourselves into that position and we're ready for it.
Yes. There's something called I pulled it up here. The Yerkes Yerkes Dobson law or bell curve, which is basically also known as the arousal anxiety or arousal performance curve. And I'll remember, because I remember I didn't post in the video I said I would last time, but I will post the picture in for those that are watching on YouTube. And essentially, it's an inverse U-shaped curve or a bell curve, where the x-axis is arousal and then the y-axis is performance, and it goes from low to high. And on the left side of the bell curve, you have like increased attention, interest, and then you also, but if your arousal or anxiety is too high, you're going to have impaired performance. And like going back to, sometimes goalies that say they don't get nervous or are too calm, if there is decreased anxiety and excitement, then performance is low. And that meets in the middle where there's an optimal level. So you do need to have some sort of anxiety in order for you to get optimal performance. It's, oh gosh, I wish I prepped better for the episode, but there's certain different neurochemicals that your body releases that help you get into that flow state where the game slows down and the puck's huge. And like, we all know the flow state, we get into it and time almost like either stands still or goes so fast that it's just like, boom. And our bodies automatically do it. And one of those things is we do need we need that cortisol from stress. We need that dopamine from excitement. We need all these neurochemicals to come into play to allow us to get there. And so it's okay to have that nervousness. It's not okay to be like, it's not okay to tell yourself, hey, I'm nervous. It's okay to be like, hey, like I'm nervous because I care. And I care because like I'm excited about this, and if reframe that in a positive way so you can use that as something that aids performance instead of hinders performance. And that's kind of where younger goalies will struggle, and hopefully you learn and you work with like a sports performance coach to help you like dial in these different things. But throughout the season, if you are taking all those games very seriously, your season is your dry run for playoffs. And in theater, what do they call that? What do they call like theater? It's like the dry run before the show, or like the costume. I don't know. Whatever. It's the test run. No, opening night's would be playoffs.
Pilot. This is like a TV show.
We go TV show. Yeah, but it's like the dry run. And
listen, every kid, a drama boy like you.
Yeah, so I did
theater boy.
I don't want to brag, but I did get an A in grade 9 high school theater, so still got it. But you throughout the season, if you're taking games seriously and you're treating it with the same playoff mentality every time, you shouldn't have to change anything. That's the point I'm trying to get across here in a very long-winded way. You shouldn't have to change anything because you've done it 100 times or 50 times or as many times as it takes. And so you just get on the ice and you do the same thing.
Yeah, like how you say what I said, but you did it with like science and then just simplified it to sound like me. But I'm going to make this also even simpler for the people listening, because I'm the doctor of common sense. You keep calling yourself doctor, but I'm the doctor of common sense and not English. If you are a goalie that is playing at any level and you are nervous before the game and you get on the ice and you look across the ice at the other goalie, do we honestly think that that guy's not just as nervous as you? And if we think like that, does that not make us feel a little bit better?
I think it should. It's like going back to the drama. You picture the audience in their underwear and you get over the nerves. We all heard that one though, right?
Right, but we're so in our heads as athletes that we only think about ourselves. But the goalie on the other end is just as nervous as we are. Yeah. Right? It's like you're going up against the guy who's just as nervous and just as excited. We're humans. It's going to be like that. It's fun. And like I said earlier, it's like pressure is a privilege. You've earned the right to feel a little bit of pressure, and it's fun. And you know what? I asked my group tonight, and across the board, I said to you guys, I asked 2 questions. I said, number 1, what's more fun, playing a regular season game in November or playing in a tournament? Every single one of them put up their hand. They had more fun playing in tournaments where there's perceived more pressure, right? And then I asked them, I said, I want you guys to think about your year and think about when you've played your best games. The best games you've played this year, are they in tournaments or in their regular seasons? And every single guy put their hand up and said their best game of the year was in a tournament. Your tournaments are your playoff practice. because there is a heightened sense of pressure because you do need to win and lose. You can lose a game on a Tuesday night in December and kind of throw it away, and you can use that as a teachable moment on like, okay, how do I bounce back? But you play a Saturday night semifinal game to get to like that's a learning experience on its own. And when those guys went back and thought about it, and they're like, yeah, actually, like I've played really well in tournaments, and there was heightened pressure, there was more excitement, and I was able to harness that and play well. Think about that. If you're a goalie listening to this, think about that, and then use that to help kind of turn your anxiety into that excitement and harness that feeling as you're like going into playoffs, whether it's like soon or you're already in the middle of your playoffs.
There's something popped in my head. I just wasn't sure the way to word it. It's kind of going back to Jordan. This is the Jordan Binnington episode. He deserves it too. So, when you think about a goalie who thrives under pressure, shows up on the big games, just like the classic hockey line is like, head coach is always like, I just want someone who's going to show up on big games, right? We as goalie coaches and hopefully sane people say, well, we're looking for goalies that are consistent. And when it comes to the playoffs, I want them to be consistent all the time. I don't want someone who's going to be super hot and cold, and then you don't know what you're going to get. And maybe they're hot in the playoffs, and maybe they're cold, but that consistency should be the same. So I'm not really sure I don't know where this question, but
The question
we take Binnington. And this Binnington is just the example. This is any team. Do you take a Jordan Binnington, or do you take a Logan Thompson, who is playing very well in the season, or you take a Jordan Binnington who is so in the season, but has won in big games?
I think the better recency bias debate, and I'm glad this is exactly where I thought you were going, is okay, let's just take Logan Thompson out because we beat that dead horse.
Okay.
But Thursday, 2 days ago, Jordan Binnington beats Connor Hellebuck.
Yes.
Right now, you are starting game one of a playoffs run. Who are you putting in net? I'm not putting Jordan Binnington in net in a game one of a best of 7 series if Connor Hellebuck is my other goalie. And guess what? Jordan Binnington just outdueled Connor Hellebuck at one time. But I'm not putting Jordan Binnington in my net if Connor Hellebuck is my other option. Consistency wins. Maybe not in a 1-game playoff. You have that outlier. You have that flash in a pan or magic in a bottle, whatever that phrase is. I'm taking Connor Hellebuck.
I'm going to pull it up here as I'm talking, but I don't know if you know. What's Binnington's playoff record after 2019? Have they made the playoffs?
Yes, they did. Yes, they did 2 years ago. And I think he played poor. I think he played poorly. But I mean,
I think I'll let you pull this up. So Jordan Binnington, 18-19. This is playoff stats. Oh, cool. Stats views. Good site. Feels like that's a lot of playoff games. 26 playoff games? That can't be right.
in his career or in 18-19?
18-19, that can't be right. That's impossible.
It takes 18 wins to win the Stanley Cup, man.
Oh, so maybe. Yeah.
26 games, not a lot.
No, you're right. Yeah, 2016. And then the next year, 5 games. Had a 4.72 goals against, 851.
So
Year after,
as good as I would be in men's league right now.
year after that, 3.59 and 899. And then was pretty good in 2021, 2022 with a 1.72 and a 0.94. So not bad, but I don't think they got past the first round.
And how many games did he play in that last one?
6 games play, maybe 1 in relief. Yeah, it looks like 1 in relief. 4 wins, 1 loss. So in playoffs, Binnington's played 41 total playoff games with a he's 20 and 20. with one overtime. Well, one over doesn't really matter. It's playoffs. And then a 2.73 and a 0.910. Um, I don't know. And this isn't the Jordan Binnington hate podcast. This is just like the understanding between like the ultimate goal is a consistent goalie who also wins big games versus a hot and cold flashy goalie that can win games. But you also have to get to the big game too. And like Jordan Binnington didn't look that great throughout the Four Nations. And it's a short tournament. Like he was good for at least one soft goal. Mind you, the overall goaltending of the tournament like was not great in just like in the lay person's eye. But also you're playing against players that are just so darn good. Like they're just so good.
I remember watching Canada-Sweden, which was the first game of the tournament. And I didn't think Binnington had a great game. And who started? Philip Gustafsson started for Sweden. I think we talked about this. When I'm watching this game, halfway through the game, I said to my buddy that I was watching with him, like, this game is too fast of a game for Gustafsson. Like he looked so rigid and like he was like guessing and behind the play because the pace of the game was so much faster. So it's really hard to
So fast.
But that's why I maybe like, I mean, if we're hypothesizing here, Binnington's best game was the fourth game where, yeah, maybe after 3 games, he got used to that pace and playing against those best players in the world because that is a much faster pace than he's going to see when he goes back to the NHL.
I wonder if all the goalies that played, when they get back and play regular season games, how do they do? And so they should have started yesterday, Saturday, the 22nd. So I'm going to go. Yeah. So I'm going to go and we'll reconvene it next week. I'll make a note to see if in their first 1 or 2 games back, did all those goalies play well or did they struggle because now you're not going against McDavid, Matthews, Marner all night. You're going against normal NHL players. And this and the best part, the Four Nations is fun because there's just one is just so good, but hopefully people can see like the best of the best are so much better than even just the average NHL player. And it's crazy. It's crazy because they're just superstars and we're just normal. We as normal people, it's just like how we can never get there. And that's just the way it goes. But I'm curious to see that. Any other shots you want to take at Binnington before we get
No, the guy's
I'm just kidding. I'm just giving you a
good on him. And yeah, the guys that were chirping us on YouTube came at us on Friday, and they're right.
That was funny. They were right. We were wrong.
Right.
They weren't right because we somehow don't want Hockey Canada to win, and we're somehow not supportive of Canada. I just kind of want to see good hockey. I don't care.
The guy was coming at me for not supporting the Canadian hockey, when all I was doing was fighting for the best Canadian goalie to be on Team Canada. But
I work with USA Hockey, so I don't know. I just wanted to see some good hockey, and
it was fun. It was good.
It was fun.
It's got me jazzed for the Olympics. Like the Olympics are going to be awesome.
The Olympics should be good, and I do hope that both countries. I think all countries are probably going to bring a pretty decent roster to the World Championship this year for those that are available, just because it's it's precursor to the Olympics for all the countries. So that should be good. I'm hoping that it's exciting and people can watch it because when best on best is there, it's really, really good hockey. Parting shots.
I gave the teaser last week.
You did.
I gotta follow up. I'm a man of my word sometimes, most of the time. I have a parting shot, and I have something that's bugging me. With open borders, if you are a head coach who is actively trying to recruit down or actively trying to keep players from moving up to a higher level, shame on you. Open borders, whether we agree with it or not, is designed to let players have freedom to play at the higher levels when they've been trapped. It is supposed to allow players to go and play higher levels. If you're a kid who is able to play double A, you have the freedom to go and play double A. If there's a coach who is trying to keep you down and build a super team, and it's happening out there, it's happening all over Ontario. You're trying to keep players down and convince them not to go play higher levels where they should be playing, then shame on you. And it's happening.
So you're saying like you're having kids that should be playing AAA staying down and playing double A or single A in order to beat teams 20-0 and win every game.
Yes, and I see it because I work with these teams that are getting beat 15-0. And that's the one thing that people don't think about. They think about trying to build their teams and stay and build these super teams. And then they beat teams 15-0. And I get to see those kids on a weekly basis that are losing 15-0. And we don't think about those kids. We don't care. And if you're a kid who's losing 15-0, you don't want to play hockey. Like your love for the game is going to get burnt out. You are not happy. You are not having fun. You are not looking forward to those games because you're going to get killed. And those kids are going to quit hockey. They're going to resent playing hockey and they're going to leave the game. They're going to go find something else. And that's not what these rules were intended to do. And I don't believe in building super teams. I really don't. I think if you're a kid who should be playing AAA hockey, you should be at least going to try out. If you don't get cut, then you're not sure. If you get cut from AAA, then you're not a AAA player. Then you can go back and play. But I don't think there should be coaches out there that are actively trying to keep players from going up.
Yes. It also isn't fun to win 15-0 every night. Like, it actually isn't. Like
It's not fun. It is for some people. Some people do. They want to win. And sometimes you got to, like, if you want to win the Silver Stick or you want to win the OMHAs, like you have to play those crappy games sometimes. And it is, but I mean, like how
every game though.
I took my son out of a team that very, very capable of winning OMHA championship to go play AAA. Now, the only option we had, because there was no movement, was he either played AAA or he had to play in his home center. So my son, I had to take him to AAA. If there was a AA option, I might have made that choice last year for him. I don't know because it wasn't an option. It was AAA or back to his A center. His A center team, very good. Like they're very high likelihood that they're going to be in at least a gold medal game in the OMHAs. That was an option. But my son needed to get out of his comfort zone. He needed to be challenged. He needed to face adversity. And I got what I wanted out of that this year. And the choices I made were good. Do we win a lot of games? No, we don't win a lot of games. Does that matter? No, because he's growing as a person and my kid's tough. So I just want, if the open borders are designed to do what they're supposed to do, then if you're capable of playing a higher level, go and challenge yourself. But if I just don't want to see coaches actively trying to keep players playing at a lower level when they have that ability. That's all.
We're gonna end on that. I don't have a good party shot because that was really good. I think that's really important because for those living in areas where we do have open borders and Ontario, welcome to the mess that's going to create. I think that's a good way to end the pod. And hopefully, if you are someone who is in charge of making those decisions, you look at it critically, especially with young kids. We're trying to develop the best athletes and young men and women that we can. So you need, part of development is also adversity and being challenged. You cannot just come in and steamroll everyone, because you're actually doing a very large disservice to those kids when they do hopefully move up one day. They're not going to be prepared when they lose games or they get pulled or they get benched or whatever it is. And that's when you're going to end up with kids with large attitude problems. And you're not only going to discourage kids on the other end who are losing a ton of games, but when those kids finally face adversity, those are the ones that crumble and usually never succeed because they haven't developed those skills to be able to deal with challenges. So don't be dumb. Don't be dumb. Think about development. Think about development. Just think.
It's not the argument isn't just on, it's not just on ice development, right? Because
human development.
Yeah. And then just like face adversity early, because the first time you face adversity, especially as an athlete, you don't want that to be when you're 16 playing in the OHL in Sudbury and mom lives 7 hours away, right? You want adversity. You want to learn through adversity from when you're 9, 10, 11, 12, so that when you get into those positions, if you're lucky enough to be that good of a player at 15, 16, 17, and you're in your draft year and there is lots of perceived pressure in your draft year because now the recruitment starts, you are able to handle that stuff. You don't just fold up because everything's always come easy for you.
Agreed. Thanks everyone for listening. If you're looking for goalie training content and anything like that, check out the EGM Labs app, rehab stuff, Ghost Rehab. If you're guys in Southern Ontario and you want to skate with, I will argue and say the best goalie coach in the world, Derek Boujan. Check him out. Ooh, Boujan Goaltending on Instagram. Is your website On Ice or Boujan?
Website is onicehockeyperformancecenter.ca. Instagram is Boujan_goaltending. I don't know. Just Google me.
Just Google Derek, skip past all like the mug shots and stuff, and then and then go to On Ice Hockey Performance Center. It is easily the best place to train for goalies and players and just athletes. So check it out. If you're in Southern Ontario, if you're visiting, if you're looking for goalie stuff this summer. Thanks, everyone, for listening, watching. We will see everybody next week.